Hey guys, Josh from Griffin Air, serving the Middle Peninsula and the northern neck of Virginia, and wanted to do a video on a Honeywell 8000 Wi-Fi thermostat. Wanted to kind of touch on a few features. I've kind of got one here that I just set up, and this is by far my favorite thermostat out there. And there's a couple of reasons for that. You might say, well, there's thermostats that are way fancier. There's thermostats that are, can do way more things than the Honeywell 8000. And that's true. But for the price point and the functionality of a Honeywell 8000, in my opinion, in my experience at this point, it's the best thermostat that I've laid hands on. So that's why I'm going to actually do several reviews on some thermostats, and I wanted to start with the Honeywell 8000 because of that. So I'm just going to kind of, like I say, go through a few features here. Okay, so here we are, and I just wanted to start out, if you ever have to make any changes to the programming, a lot of contractors don't want the homeowner messing with that stuff, but I think the more you know as a homeowner, if you're a homeowner watching this, the more you understand about it, the less that if something is odd or different or so on, the more educated you are on the thermostat itself, the better off you're going to be as far as making calls that you don't need to make and things like that. So anyway, so if you got to make any changes to this thermostat, and you got to actually go into the programming of the thermostat, it's going to ask you for a 4-digit code, and that code is right there. So this one, if you can see, is 1606, and yours might be different if you have a Honeywell 8000. So get this put back on here, and it's just 2 hinges right here to get it put back on there, and as you see, it kind of rocks on those hinges and it clicks right in. So that's honestly another thing I love about the 8000. After working with different thermostats over the years, and you're fighting it to get it put back on the base, that's pretty nice, just that alone. So anyway, we're going to go through a couple things here. It's actually going through an update right now. It's connected to the Wi-Fi, but we're going to get in here anyway. So if you go to menu and you come down to installer options, that's where you can go into the programming of the thermostat. And I'm going to go through some of the different features again, but that's one of the things I love about this thermostat, because it's so easy to get in there and it's so easy to make changes. I don't need a booklet to decipher what code means what, or what certain things mean, and you won't either after I go through some of these things. So we're going to click on installer options, and that's where it's going to ask you for that code. And once you're in there, it actually has several different options. We're just going to go right into the setup. And so again, it's going to just start asking you questions. That's one of the things that I love about it. I don't need a booklet. It's just going to ask you some questions, and you just answer those questions. And so as long as you know what it's asking, you can answer it. And so application, we're residential, we're in a house. You can name the thermostat. It actually will give you several different options. You can kind of go through those, but I have a 2-story home. Upper level is what we're going to name this one. You can make it programmable or non-programmable. I have customers that love programmable thermostats. They run and schedule every day, and I have other customers that it's just more junk on their screen. They're never going to run a schedule. They're, for whatever reason, they're either not at the house as much, or they're there all the time, or whatever the reason is, they don't want to run a schedule, and it's just one more thing that they have to fool with the holds and all that, and I'll get into that later. So that's what that's saying. We're gonna leave this one programmable. Of course, Fahrenheit, I'm in the United States, we use Fahrenheit. You can change it to Celsius if you need to. Use an outdoor temperature. This one I'm just gonna, like I say, leave it alone, but if you were to use remote sensors and things like that, you know, sometimes you'll get other options. Heating system, you'll select what kind of heating system. I have a heat pump system, an air-to-air heat pump versus, say, a geothermal. We'll leave that. Reversing valve, depending on what brand system you have, the reversing valve could be one thing or another. Just to name a few brands out there, if you have a Rheem, a Rude, a Bosch, or an Ameristar, you're gonna actually want this to be a B. Hopefully you can see this. Let me see if I can get a little closer here so y'all can see this too. So you want it to be a B instead of an O there. And most other brands, Trane, American Standard, Carrier, Bryant, Goodman, all those different brands, that would be an O. So we're gonna leave this on an O. This is a Goodman system. Compressor stages, if you're not sure on that, you're gonna wanna find out. And so most residential systems, 16 SEER or below, it's gonna be a single stage compressor. As you start to get in higher SEERs and things like that, you'll see more stages. So we'll leave that one. Backup heat stages, if you have a, you know, backup heat strips or things like that, or if you have a dual fuel system, you would change that to a 1. I have nothing on this. Whoever installed this, there's no backup heat strips, and we've never needed them. The heat from downstairs rises, and you know, the heat turns on when it needs to, but even if it gets super cold outside, you know, it's never needed heat strips. So kind of interesting. So 0 on that for us. System changeover, I did a whole separate video you're welcome to check out about automatic changeover or manual changeover. What that is you can actually set a temperature range on your thermostat. And the reason you would want that is on mild days where, you know, it gets cold at night, warm during the day, might be running heat at night and cool, you know, AC during the day. You would turn that on. You have a temperature range. So if it gets above a certain temperature or below a certain temperature, it would bring it back into that range. So we have that on here. And you can actually change, this says auto changeover deadband. That is that range. So this is 3 degrees, and we're gonna leave that on 3, but you can change that if you want a bigger or smaller range on that temperature. Me personally, I wouldn't go any lower than 3 because you would have a system that's probably going to be turning on and off a lot. It's going to be maybe even fighting itself at times. I think 3 is good because, you know, if you're comfortable at, say, 72 degrees, you know, you could set that range to correlate with that, where it's going to keep you in that same range. We're not going to mess with that in this video. Goes through some cycles. Typically, I wouldn't mess with that. As long as I've been doing this, I don't mess with the cycles. And what that is it's going to go through, you know, how many cycles per hour the system's going to run, and that will change depending on what kind of system you have. You know, whether it's a heat pump or a furnace or so on, electric furnace versus a gas furnace, you know, different things like that. They'll have different cycles. So we're not going to mess with that. Compressor off time, 5 minutes. That's pretty industry standard. What that is if you make a change to the thermostat, it's going to make that system wait. It's going to actually have a delay timer, and it's going to wait for 5 minutes before it actually brings that system back on again. It's just to protect the compressor. You're not going to have any on-off spikes in energy, you know, where your system, you know, your compressor could actually, you know, heat up and short and all that. So 5-minute delay. Extended fan runtime. I did a whole video alone on the dirty sock syndrome, the smells you might get, why you might turn that on during the cool, during AC. And then in heat, which would be our next one, you might have a system that has a heat exchanger, say like a furnace, and you are wasting energy there if you don't have your extended fan runtime on. You can turn that on. You got a hot heat exchanger. System reaches temperature, turns off, continues to run a little bit. It cools that heat exchanger. I've sat through classes where different people have talked about that alone, but the cool thing about that is that's energy. You heated up that heat exchanger. Your gas valve, your gas burners heated up that furnace, that heat exchanger, and now we're going to get as much of that energy off of there as we can. So this is scheduled periods, 2 periods per day. Depending on what your lifestyle is, you might have that set on 4, you might set it on 2. It just depends. And what that means is, like if it was set on 4, you might have it be one temperature when you wake up, another temperature when you leave your home, third temperature when you return, and then a fourth temperature when you go to bed. I only have 2 on this particular one. So we don't have anybody that sleeps up here, and I actually don't run a schedule much anyway. I use the Wi-Fi a lot. So anyway, adaptive recovery. Yes, I wouldn't mess with that too much unless you're, really a stickler about energy savings and so on. What that is this system will actually adjust based on how long it takes to reach a certain temperature. If you're running a schedule, it will learn, let's say you have it set, okay, at 8 o'clock, I want it to be 72 degrees. And it will learn, okay, it takes me 20 minutes to reach, that temperature. So I'm going to come on at actually 7:40, and it will come on, and that by the time it reaches that 8 o'clock scheduled set point, you'll be at the temperature you want it to be. If you turn it off, it will not turn on until that actual scheduled appointment. So minimum set point, cool set point, I usually go 60 or 65 on that. I think factory, when you get the thermostat, it's much lower than that. Maybe 50, I think. Might be even lower than that, but at least with some thermostats. But I always do 60 or 65, especially if you have kids. They mess with, kids mess with things. They mess with the thermostat and they set the temperature way too low, and now you got a system that's been running constantly, and that creates a whole nother issue and so on. So just keep that in mind. Let's see. And of course, maximum heat set point, same reason. I usually set that at 80. I think it comes out of the box at 90, and I'll set that at 80. I'd say most homes, it's rare, but I have had a few customers that like it super, super warm in there. But I'd say most folks, 80 is plenty. If it's 80 degrees in your house, you're cooking. So, a keypad lockout. I think in my entire career, we've only turned that on once or twice. We had a library where some folks kept messing with it, and so they locked the keypad out. And then I had some college dorms, believe it or not, years ago, where we put a thermostat and locked out the keypad because the school did not want the kids to keep messing with the temperature on the thermostat. Wired sensor, S terminals. If you can install a wired sensor for a couple different things. If you have a dual fuel system, you would have that in there to measure that outside temperature, to decide whether or not it's going to run furnace or heat pump. But you can also wire a sensor on there for an indoor temperature sensor. And what's cool about that is if you have those applications where you would almost want to relocate the thermostat somewhere else, depending on what's going on. Maybe it's sitting in the sun, or maybe it's right by the front door, and it just keeps affecting the temperature of the room. I've had customers complain about the location, and instead of having to relocate the thermostat or doing all these crazy things, you can install a sensor. I've even seen remote sensors where, you know, and then you wire it in here, but you just wire it on there. So anyway, the point is, in this particular scenario, we have nothing wired to the S terminals, and so we're gonna leave that on no. Filter type media, that's pretty self-explanatory. If you have an electronic air cleaner, or, you know, it says no filter, I'm not sure. If you don't have any filter, you should get one. But most times we're selecting media. Number of air filters, you can decide, you know, your system, what the answer to that is. And then it's going to go through some reminders, depending on whether or not you have a dehumidifier, a humidifier, filter, UV light, and so on. You can actually set some reminders up. There's even a custom reminder tab that you can go through on that and actually set to where the thermostat will tell you after so many runtime days, you know, hey, it's time. It's time to replace your filter. It's time to replace your humidifier pad. It's time to replace your UV light bulb. You know, things like that. So that's actually pretty cool. So UV lights. Backlighting, most folks like it on demand. What that means is this green light, this glow, if you will. Let me show you what that actually will look like so you can see how bright it actually is. Let's see. You know, so it's not too bright, but you can see, you know, you can actually see me kind of, sort of. And so it puts off a little bit of a light. Some folks don't like that, and it should go off here any second. But, you know, you got your thermostat illuminating an entire room or the hallway or whatever, and a lot of folks don't like that. So they'll leave this on demand, and it may not go off here because we're actually programming it right this second. But, you know, within 10, 15, 20 seconds, it'll usually go off, and you can change that to continuous. See if you can see it there. See, it says continuous. And what that would be is it would just, you know, keep that green glow on all the time. So let's get our lights back on here as we finish up. We're almost to the end if you're still watching this. Continuous, 12-hour format. I have had a few customers, and you know, we're near the coast in Virginia, so we do have some customers that serve in the military. And if you're watching this and you serve, thank you. We really appreciate it. You can change that to 24-hour format. We'll leave ours on 12. Indoor temperature offset. I've had those customers, and you might be one of those folks that, you know, it drives them nuts. It drives you nuts if you have a separate thermometer in that room and it's different, right? You know, you got a thermometer in there. The thermometer says it's 72, but your thermostat thinks it's 74, and, you know, it's driving you crazy. Well, you can actually go in here to this offset and tell the thermostat you are 2 degrees off from my thermometer, and correct that. And I've had customers that, you know, wanted that, and we fixed that. So that's kind of cool. Show humidity on the home screen, yes or no. That's totally up to you. I've had customers that, once again, it just drives them bonkers. In case you didn't know, there's a safe zone. We have actually a chart on our website that goes through you know, the different humidities and what's safe and what's not. And, you know, if you start getting up into the 70, 80, 90% range, or, you know, down below the 20, 10% range, there's health problems, you know, actual breathing issues that can arise from that. And, but, you know, here in Virginia, there are those summer days where, you know, I don't have a dehumidifier. Maybe I should probably get one, but there's those days where the humidity will rise. You know, it'll start to get up 60, 65%. And, you know, but then as the day goes on, the AC runs, it'll start to lower that humidity back down. So anyway, the point is, it drives some people nuts when they see the humidity up there, and it's, you know, up there. and we're getting ready to, the next, I believe it's the next one. There it is. You can actually, if once again, if you have a hygrometer or psychrometer or whatever, and you know that this humidity reading is off, you got to realize these thermostats, they're not only are they measuring the room, but you know, sometimes there's a hole in the wall behind it. It's picking up temperature or humidity from the wall, you know, behind the wall, things like that. And you can go in there and change these offsets because of that. So we're going to leave that alone. Alert light indicator. This is another one of those, especially if you have a heating system where, you know, this little light down here, it's actually red, where it will turn on every time the second stage or third stage comes on, things like that. And it drives some customers nuts. Honestly, I'll usually turn that off. There's also when you get to the home screen, earlier it said updating. There's alerts that will pop up, different types of alerts, things like, hey, it's, you know, your date needs to be set, or you need to reconnect to Wi-Fi, things like that. Alerts will pop up, and when that is on there, you'll have a little red light down here, and a lot of customers don't want to see that. It just drives them bonkers. So anyway, last thing, dealer name. We'll usually, as a dealer, we'll, you know, go ahead and punch in our information, but that's pretty much it. You can even put a little, you know, if you are a heating and air contractor, put a little message up there or whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the Honeywell 8000. I love it. For the price point, it can do lots of different things. There aren't too many residential systems that it can't service. And of course, it's, like I say, it's Wi-Fi, it's touchscreen, it's a good looking thermostat at that price point. I know there's prettier thermostats out there. Maybe that, you know, maybe they're colorful or they're a different shape or whatever, but man, the Honeywell 8000 for the price point is one stud of a thermostat. So anyway, we're done with the programming. If you went through that, kind of reprogrammed your stuff, now you know what all those mean. Hit done, exit setup, yes. Do you want to save your changes? Yes, and it'll save them. So pretty cool. I'm going to actually go back outside of the programming and show you a couple more things that if you have an 8000, you would want to know. The first thing is, as you can see, I got my temperature range over here. At this time of year, which I'm actually in the beginning of spring, still got some cool days and nights, and we're not up here a whole lot, and it stays pretty comfortable. It's a little cool up here now, 66 degrees, but you know, I'd say midday it'll sometimes rise up here, you know, get close up to 70, and we're not even up here, so even without the system running, it'll do that. So that's why my range is so big right now. However, if you do make a change, let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and cancel hold. If you do make a change, you'll see where it comes up, it'll say temporary hold or permanent hold. See if you can see that. Okay, temporary hold, permanent hold. What that is if it's a temporary hold, it is going to hold at that thermostat or at that temperature that you just set it at until your next scheduled period in your schedule. So if you're running a program, a schedule, until that next, so for example, it's 5 o'clock right now, you change it, it's temporary hold, and then your next scheduled, you know, in your calendar of the schedule you're running on your thermostat is 8 o'clock, it'll go back to running the schedule at 8 o'clock, okay? But permanent hold is permanent. Hit permanent, done. Always hit done. When you make a change to this thermostat, you're going to want to hit done. But anyway, permanent hold, it's going to permanently hold at that temperature until you hit cancel hold. So hopefully you can see that. So I'm going to put my heat back down here where I had it. Cool up, you know, kind of high here. Done. Okay. So next thing is fan. We got on, that's where the fan would stay on constantly. A lot of customers have said, well, it says on, well, I want it to be on. So of course I'm gonna pick on. But what they don't realize is on means on, whether the system is on, running or not. On is on is on is on, right? So it's going to be on if you turn it to on. If you have any indoor air quality products, UV light, ionizer, a bodacious filter, filtering the air, different indoor air quality, you might turn that on. As you can see, I have it on auto. And then also, if you have any indoor air quality, you might turn circulate on. And I've heard different people say they might turn circulate on in the summertime to kind of circulate some of the air through the house. But you also might turn that on again if you have some indoor air quality products to, so that way it comes on. And what circulate is whether the system's calling or not, even if it's not calling, it's going to come on periodically and circulate that air. So, done. System. And as you can see, we've got some different options here. Heat, cool. If you have a backup form of heat, you might see emergency heat as an option here. Since I don't, it's not an option. So we're going to leave that on auto, which is that temperature range. Done. And that's pretty much it as far as that goes. If you have any questions, if you'd like a Honeywell 8000, we'd love to earn your business. Give us a call at Griffin Air, 804-505-0247. Thank you.